Well, I appreciate being here. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. I feel like I got the tough time spot here. I followed Chairman Nels and then Administrator Bose, and then everybody's had lunch, and then me, and I feel like you've had a lot of government here at one point after lunch. So before I start, I do want to recognize a few folks. I think we have a record attendance for TxDOT employees. And I want to recognize the folks that work in my office hard every day to ensure that we're doing the best job that we can do to advance rail safety and rail projects in the state. Before I do that, I also want to recognize Alan Rutter with TTI. He's the former FRA administrator appointed by President Bush over here. We have Alyssa Greenberg with our Federal Affairs Group over here, Wesley Starnes with State Legislative Affairs over here, Chad Coburn, our Section Director of Planning and Programming, Doug Henry is our lead over our Section 130 and replanking program, and Kai Tao, our Section Director over rail letting, I think is over here. Thank you all very much for what you do every day. And if I miss somebody, I'm sorry. I tried. All right, let's see here. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about real quick is our Executive Director, Mark Williams, has kind of given the division directors and our district engineers some instructions on what he would like to see happen in the next year. We really want to focus on safety, project delivery, innovation, and stewardship, but especially when it comes to safety. We've gone almost 24 years where we've had a death on a Texas highway every single day. The last day that we did not have a death on a Texas highway was November 7th, 2000. So we're approaching 24 years. So we really have to focus on safety. When I talk about that, we talk about grade crossing safety as well. And these numbers might be off just a little bit. We had 37 deaths at rail grade crossings last year, and we had about 258 incidents at grade crossings last year. Now, if you count public and private grade crossings, we got 15,000 more than any other state. So obviously there's opportunity for more incidents to happen, but my office in TxDOT is going to do what we can to improve and focus on safety going forward. We really have to do what we can to end the streak, is what we call it at TxDOT. With that, we have several safety initiatives. I would encourage you at any point to go out and look at these initiatives that we have and do what you can in your railroads or your companies to improve safety along Texas highways. All right, the rail division. So when Mr. Galvin started, there was what, three of you? How many did you start with? Oh, well, that just ruined my story. Let's pretend like it was a small division. It's a bigger division today. When I started, we had about 32 employees, and we're up to 43 now. And I will be putting in a request for more. Something that we're doing now that we have not done in the past is we're putting rail division employees in the districts. The rail division is the only division of record that can enter into an agreement with a railroad when it comes to a project. And the thought process is if we put a rail division employee in the district, they're sitting next to the district engineer, have a seat at the table, and we can negotiate projects quicker and puts projects back in the district engineer's hands to move things quicker. As you know, we have a $100 billion UTP plan. That means we have to spend about $1 billion a month in order to meet our UTP plan. And about a quarter of every TxDOT project has a rail component or a rail agreement involved. So the Texas Rail Network, I think most of you are familiar with this. We have about almost 11,000 miles of track. We have the 3 Class 1 railroads, 55 short lines, 4 passenger commuter rails that my office regulates as far as FRA, not the FTA, that's managed by our public transportation group. And then we have about 14,000 crossings, including private crossings, and 5,426 bridges. This rail map is on our website. If you go to the TxDOT and look up the rail division, this is a new map from previous years. We have taken the holding companies and put the railroads under the holding companies. So if you're a G&W, all the railroads that G&W owns that operate in Texas will be under that. Same with WACO and whomever else. So it'd be a little easier to follow, and we thought it would be easier if you could find the holding company and the railroads under it. And again, that's available on our website. The rail division, people ask me all the time, what does the TxDOT rail division do? Well, it seems like a good question. The TxDOT Rail Division implements rail-related policies, performs infrastructure and operational analysis, and rail project planning, monitors potential rail abandonments, oversees rail highway safety and rail inspections, and manages the South Orient Railroad. So we own a 400-mile railroad from San Angelo into Presidio, Texas, with a border crossing getting ready to begin construction. I'll talk about that in a minute, into Mexico. So that's kind of overall what we do, and then I want to talk just briefly about what each of those sections do. So we have a rail safety section that works with the FRA. We are a state program that works under 49212 regulation that gives us authority as state inspectors, the same as the FRA inspectors, to go out and inspect railroads for compliance with federal regulations. So I have 15 inspectors throughout the state that go out and look at railroads and ensure compliance. As you can see, we've inspected over 2,500 miles of track, almost 15,000 locomotive and cars, 6,100 hazmat cars, 1,100. We've looked at 1,108 people, which means conductors, switchmen, brakemen, and then we've looked at 793 crossings. We've taken 5,401 defects and written 63 violations were recommended to the FRA. So you can see we are out there every day trying to do our part to make sure that the safety culture is in the railroads and enforcing those regulations. Again, trying to boil down and get down to the safety of railroads operating within Texas. We also have the rail letting section. I was talking about a quarter of every TxDOT project. We have a $100 billion UTP program, which means we have a lot of construction going on. So if you don't have it near you, just wait. It will be coming soon. There's a lot of construction getting ready to happen in Texas. As the growth happens, everybody talks about growth. We have to keep the infrastructure up with it. That's not only roads, but also as rail. We have about 23, you see almost 2,400 active projects at any given time that are open to close. And that's what Kai's group and Doug manage. We only have about 5 folks. Well, I'm sorry, not Kai, Patty. Patty's not here today. She just had twins, so I gave her the time off. I was not going to argue with a mother with twins, I can tell you that. So we, the rail letting section, I apologize, she manages about 2,400 projects. So it takes, on average, with the Class 1 railroads, about 2 years to get a project to an agreement. So if you can imagine, anywhere in that 2-year process, these 2,400 projects are going, and we only have about 5 people in rail division to manage all those. So again, we will be trying to grow the division to keep up with the project load that we have. Now Kai, I apologize, now a Section 130 program. So we get about $20.9 million from the FHWA every year to spend on Section 130, which is grade crossing improvements. We spent, and I can't thank enough Kai and Doug's group for what they've done, to spend $32.4 million in obligations last year. So they spent well over the 1 year, $21 million obligation. In the next 5 years, he's committed to spending $135 million. And then on replanking is about $3.5 million of state money that we get every year. He spent $7.6 million in executed contracts last year. In the next 5 years, we hope to spend almost $25 more million. So that is all going towards grade crossing safety and improvement. We are spending some of those Section 130 dollars in creative ways. We are working with the BNSF Railroad and the UP Railroad to put hydrogen cells at grade crossings on hurricane evacuation routes. So there, if we lose power, if the railroad loses power, the grade crossing protection system will continue to work. In the old days, they would put out generators. Holter probably don't want to hear this because they would manage those, but they would put out generators, and you would have to maintain the generators, hope they didn't get stolen, and fuel them at grade crossings. But now with the hydrogen systems, that will hopefully be a much better system. And again, those will be placed at hurricane evacuation routes along the Gulf Coast. And then next, we may look at the Panhandle, where we have severe snowstorms that could potentially knock out power as well. All right, so some of our priorities with IIJA grade crossing grants, I know the administrator has spoken about that. We received, well, it was $570 million nationwide in rail crossing eliminations in fiscal year 22, and Texas received about 20% of those funds. all three TxDOT applications were approved, and we will be working with the FRA on planning 3 more for this fiscal year. You probably can't see, but the ones in the yellow, Rinneman Road, or Highway 90, and Bonds Ranch Road, right up the road here, were all approved, and we're working on those now. And the ones in the red, the ones that we'll be working on in the future for grade crossing eliminations. We try to prioritize those. Well, there you go. For example, Highway 90, we'll use that as an example. The average daily delay, we do these studies, was 187 minutes. And by 2046, we projected that to be 391, so almost 400 minutes of delay. So that met our criteria to apply for a grade crossing elimination grant, and $20 million was awarded. Also with Bonds Ranch Road, you can see here in Fort Worth and Saginaw, there's several crossings there that we have. 2 of them have been funded, and we have 3 more that we were in the planning stage for. So again, we are actively looking to close crossings or grade separate. The best grade crossing is no crossing. So where we can study and prioritize those crossings, we want to work with our federal partners, our city, state, county partners, in trying to identify those crossings and eliminate them, or at least grade separate them. Well, this thing's working me today. All right, the South Orient Railroad. So I know there's a lot of interest in that. Again, we own the railroad. We work with our partner, Texas Pacifico, who's a great partner of ours that is the operator. So by state law, we can own a railroad, but we cannot operate it. So we enter into an operating agreement. And again, we've had a long-standing operating agreement with Texas Pacifico. So this project has been delayed and delayed and delayed, and when it has finally gone to let, the project did let successfully. The commission approved it last month, and we hope to have a pre-construction meeting here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then we will start to break ground in Presidio and build a CBP facility. The NII equipment, which is the X-ray equipment, which is needed for the rail cars to go through, has been procured and will be delivered this summer. And we will be having a second letting in order to, for construction for the NII equipment and the facility to go together. So there's some conduit that's got to be run and some other engineering things that needs to happen. But the most important thing to tell you is that CBP facility will start to be built this summer. By contract, they had, I think it was 364 days to build it. We hope that it will not take that long. I'm sure they have built-in rain delays and other delays that may be in there. And so within the next 12 to 18 months, we should be able to have a CBP facility and X-ray equipment and start moving traffic cross-border into Mexico. Now, this is Mr. Funny Man Chad over here. We've had this slide in here before, and I told a joke about I tried to be a funny guy about eating Chick-fil-A because the cow was mad at me. I don't know if you were here before. You heard that. It was much funnier because the crowd laughed last time. So he stuck this cow back in here. I took it out and apparently stuck it back in. So I have no more joke. You didn't laugh this time, so you're not going to laugh if I try to tell another one. So we have a cow out there that likes to hang out at the crossing. Well, he's a protester, but we're gonna get past him. All right, the Texas State Rail Plan. That is due this year. We're working on that. And there's HDR has reached out to all the railroads that we're working with. We will be having stakeholder meetings. We'll be working online with the public, and we will be making the revisions to the 2019 State Rail Plan. It is important for any railroad that is in here that if you have any projects, to get with Chad and make sure those projects are documented in the State Rail Plan. This was required by the FRA for federal funding for any rail projects. I will tell you, I hope, my plan is that this will be the last year of a standalone state rail project. My plan is to roll it into the Texas Freight Plan for 2 reasons. One is the state plan, the state rail plan now just is signed off by my office, and that's it. The freight plan, it goes through the Freight Advisory Committee. So all the rail plans or rail projects will be included in there. It will have visibility by the Freight Advisory Committee and will also go to the Commission for approval. So that will put several eyes on it that has not been seen before, and we will have a one document that talks about mobility and freight planning in the state that will include rail. So I think that would be a better document and a better use of our time to try to move rail projects forward. All right, what everybody's been waiting for, right? The Texas Triangle. So the CID program, I know the administrators talked about it. TxDOT has applied, or did apply, for 3 corridor ID programs. Dallas to Fort Worth to San Antonio, and San Antonio to Dallas. We were awarded 2 of those programs. That's Dallas to Fort Worth and Fort Worth to San Antonio. The third leg of the triangle was not awarded by FRA. Reason being was that TxDOT had a clerical error. I'll just be very transparent with you. We had a clerical error in our submission, and that made it ineligible for the FRA to review it. So therefore, we were not granted that leg. So what are we going to do about that? When the next NOFO comes out, we will reapply for that leg. And in the meantime, as we're working through the state rail plan, everything that would need to be studied in that I-35 corridor, we will look at through the state rail plan. And then when the new NOFO comes out, we apply. We hope the FRA would grant that for us, and we would not lose pace with the other 2 legs of the triangle. So I hope that makes sense. That's what we're going to try to do. And I want to be very clear, this is on conventional rail that's already being used by Class 1 railroads. Now, there would have to be some Dallas to Houston is not existing passenger service now, so we would have to look at that through the corridor ID program. And the other 2 legs have current Amtrak service on it. So I just wanted to be clear and be very transparent that we will catch that 3rd leg up. And that TxDOT's application is different than the high-speed application going from Dallas or from Fort Worth to Houston. We're looking at conventional rail, they're looking at green space. There's other rail expansions. The I-20 corridor, Knox Ross is going to talk about that. He knows much more about that than I do. The Heartland Flyer expansion into Newton, you know, we own half of the Heartland Flyer. We signed a letter of support for Kansas to extend that line from Oklahoma into Newton, Kansas. And I think Kansas is pretty far along in their study, and we hope that they're successful in getting that extension into Newton. And then the Texas Central Railway, which is the high-speed rail, don't ask me. I know you want to, but I don't have any answers. I would have to defer that to Mr. Byford. He will know much more about that than I do because, again, our application is different than their application. And then lastly is Chris Regant's. The NOFO will close May 28th, 2024. So any railroad though, or anybody that's eligible to apply, if you are looking for a letter of support from TxDOT, that window is narrowing. I would suggest you get it into us as quickly as possible. Send it to Chad Coburn. Chad will work with our governmental affairs folks to get it to Mark Williams for signature. And I think I have allowed time, or maybe I haven't, for questions. Thank you. Well, this could be easy. Oh, yes, sir.
Yet, but one of the big markets for rail freight is they can quite easily expand their dimensional, or what we call clearance cargo dimensions. So that would be a minimum of roughly 21 feet to 23 foot max overhead clearance above the top of the rail. Cargo widths that would be allowed for giant cargo movements, 14 foot to 16 foot widths, and of course then a 315,000 pound axle loading capability. I wonder if your state has considered discussions with the railroads to take allowance for planning that kind of a future dimensional cargo capacity.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, that's up to the railroad. The only authority TxDOT has now is for a clearance deviation. So if you're to build a fixed object near a railroad track, closer than, I believe it's 9 feet and 21 feet. 8.6, 22 feet. Man, I don't know how you remember that. You have to apply to TxDOT for a clearance deviation. It comes through my office, and then the commission approves it. Other than that, I would say the high wide loads or anything over the 286 pound cars would be up to the railroads. Well, this is the easiest crowd I've ever had.
You're getting off so easy today.
I know.
There's got to be one or two
I told you they're
more.
in coma from lunch. All right, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.